In the world of Draenor, orcs live in groups known as clans. This world slowly being torn apart by a mysterious destructive force known as fell magic, so a warlock named Gul'dan wants all the clans to come together to find a new land where to live. The chief of the Frostwolf clan is Durotan, whose wife Draka is pregnant. When Gul'dan calls all the chiefs to join the mission, Draka is determined to go with her husband and his best friend Orgrim, and she'll just have to hide her pregnant belly. Gul'dan doesn't have that much magic yet, even if he keeps on killing other races to absorb their life force while the half-orc slave Garona works as his interpreter. This is why the magic gate he'll open will only transport the strongest orcs for now, and they'll bring the rest of the population over later. The gate opens, and as the orcs travel through the mysterious portal, the trip affects Draka and forces her into labor. Once everyone arrives at the new world called Azeroth, Chief Blackhand gets furious with Durotan for bringing a pregnant warrior, but Gul'dan helps her give birth. The baby is early and barely alive, so Gul'dan absorbs life from a random animal, making the baby strong and healthy. The use of Fel also makes the boy green. Later in the Dwarf Kingdom, Commander Anduin is acquiring the dwarves' latest invention, a weapon known as Boomstick. A dwarf arrives with a message saying one of Anduin's garrisons has been attacked and he needs to go back immediately. When he makes it to the garrison, Anduin learns most of the soldiers were killed, yet nobody saw anything, but they did caught a young man inspecting the bodies in the barracks. Anduin goes to see the prisoner, immediately pushing him against the table to find the mark on his arm. This is Khadgar, a young mage that had been an apprentice to become the kingdom's next guardian, but he renounced his vows. Khadgar insists that the secret of the attack is in the bodies, so Anduin lets him inspect one, and they find a green puff of energy coming out from a dead soldier. Khadgar thinks the guardian needs to see this, but only the king can summon the guardian. Anduin and Khadgar go to see King Rin to tell him about the fell magic sucking out the life of the garrison soldiers. Their conversation is interrupted by a soldier raising the alarm. Grand Hamlet has been attacked. Odan watches how his son Callan is sent to battle and tells Queen Teria, who is also his sister, that he doesn't want Callan to follow in his footsteps. This attack makes Rin realize how serious this is, and he gives Anduin his ring so he can summon the guardian, who nobody has heard from in 6 years. Meanwhile, the orcs continue to attack all the human villages they can find, trying to keep people alive to use them as fuel. Blackhand loves the hunt, but Durotan doesn't approve of the fact they're attacking innocents instead of fellow warriors. By flying on a griffin, Anduin and Khadgar make it to the Guardian's tower, where they're welcomed by Morose, the Guardian's assistant. Morose takes Anduin to see the Guardian while Khadgar is left in the library. Among the bookshelves, he's shocked to see a black shadow that disappears into a book when Khadgar comes closer. By using the glow on his tattoo, Khadgar identifies the book and puts it away in his bag. Upstairs, Anduin meets with the Guardian Medivh, who is in the middle of sculpting a golem. Anduin tells him about the king's summon, but Medivh senses Khadgar's presence and rushes to attack him, furious because Khadgar had quit the apprenticeship. Medivh only lets him go when Khadgar tells him Fel magic is here and explains that Fel is a force that feeds on life itself and pollutes the user. Medivh accepts to go to see the king, teleporting everyone back to the castle. Rin welcomes Medivh into his strategy room and they discuss their options. Since they know nothing about the enemy, they'll need to do some scouting first. Anduin guides a group through the forest, where they find traces of fell magic all over the destruction caused by the orcs. Suddenly the group is attacked by some orcs led by Blackhand. A fierce battle begins, and Durotan tries to go after Khadgar, but the mage easily stops him with magic. Anduin keeps a close eye on Callan, saving him when he needs help. Blackhand tries going after him, so Anduin defends himself by using the boomstick, which takes Blackhand's fingers. While the soldiers fight, Medivh activates a spell that drains the fell magic out of the green orcs that have been enhanced with it and kills them. Seeing this, the normal orcs decide to run away. Medivh has used too much magic and has to go back to his tower, so he leaves Khadgar in charge of the magical defense. Durotan manages to escape, but on his way he finds Garona still chained to one of the dead orcs and frees her. The soldiers go after the orcs, and Anduin finds himself in a fight with a huge one. After exchanging a few hits, Anduin manages to knock him out, and when the orc's wolf mount tries to save his master, Anduin scares it away by threatening to kill the orc. Garona comes across Khadgar and tries to attack him, but he quickly uses magic and captures her. Anduin comes back with the orc, and they put him with Garona in a cage. On the way to the city, Garona exchanges a few words with Anduin, and the orc gets furious hearing her speak the tongue of the enemy. Since Garona won't stop, the orc tries to attack her, and Anduin has to kill him to save her. Later at the castle, Garona explains to Rin that the orcs come from a dying world. She learned the human language from the prisoners they take, which are being fed to Gul'dan in the gate. Rin wants Garona to help the humans fight the orcs, promising her freedom as a reward, but Garona refuses. Meanwhile, the orcs return to their camp, where Gul'dan scolds Blackhand for failing his mission. Since he's brought shame to the horde, his punishment shall be death, but Durotan interrupts the judgment to save Blackhand, pointing out it's not their fault that the human mage used their own fel against them. Back in the castle, Garona is being kept in a cage. Medivh shows up to ask her who guided the orcs to this land, and Garona explains Gul'dan saw a demon in the gate. At that moment, more people enter the room, and Medivh disappears. Teria brings Garona food and a coat as a peace offering, promising Garona a life of freedom among humans if she helps. In the meantime, Khadgar studies the book he stole and finds a drawing of the gate with a note that says Ascalodi. The next day, Durotan discusses the situation with Orgrim. This land is being killed by the Fel too, and Durotan doesn't think it's a coincidence that their old world started to die when Gul'dan came to power. Orgrim doesn't think one magic orc can do this much damage, but Durotan's sure Gul'dan should be stopped, and he'll ask the humans for help. Orgrim doesn't approve. At the castle, Garona accepts the deal and she's given armor, but not a weapon. A new group leaves to do more scouting, and when they stop to camp at night, Garona shares what happened to her. Her name means cursed in Orc, and her mother was killed for giving birth to a halfie. The only memory Garona has of her is her tusk. In return, Khadgar shares that he was sent to the mages when he was 6 and he never saw his family again, because giving up a child to the council is supposed to be a great honor. The next day, the group reaches the Orc camp and watches it from afar. Now that he knows their plans, their numbers, and the exact location, Anduin wants to go back to tell the king, so he rides ahead. Before Khadgar and Garona can join him, Durotan shows up and captures Khadgar to tell Garona to pass a message to the king. He wants to meet to arrange a truce and work together. Garona promises to pass the message and wonders if Durotan will accept her in his clan as a reward, but Durotan thinks she's safer among humans. Back in the tower, Medivh is desperately reaching into his magic pool to recover. Morose thinks he shouldn't leave again, and when Medivh explains they need a guardian, Morose points out Khadgar could help. At the castle, Rin is arguing with the elf and dwarf leaders, who don't want to help fight the orcs because they have to protect their own kingdoms. Anduin interrupts them to bring the news of the gate, and everyone wonders where Medivh is when they need him the most. At that moment a soldier arrives to inform Anduin that his son has been hurt in battle. Anduin rushes to see him, confirming Callan's hurt but alive. Afterward, Garona tells Rin about Durotan's offer. Anduin isn't sure if they should trust it, but Teria comes forward and gifts Garona a dagger as a sign they should work together. Meanwhile, Khadgar returns to his room and finds Medivh there, furious because Khadgar has been doing research behind his back. Medivh reminds Khadgar he's the only guardian and dealing with the Fel is his duty. Khadgar should only concentrate on protecting the king. Then Medivh burns all of Khadgar's notes and leaves with the book. Fortunately Khadgar saved a page in his pocket and goes to see Anduin to tell him what Medivh did. He also shows him the page, which confirms someone on this side must have invited Gul'dan for him to be able to open the gate. Anduin tells Khadgar Medivh was just protecting him, but he's just trying to keep the boy from panicking, and now Anduin is suspicious of Medivh. Sometime later, Durotan and his warriors get ready to receive the humans, which Orgrimmar doesn't like at all. Nearby, Medivh watches without being noticed. Rin arrives with his group and with Garona translating, Durotan explains that in 2 days the human fuel will finish charging the portal. If Rin's army attacks the camp and distracts the warriors, Durotan and the Frostwolf clan will take the chance to kill Gul'dan. When both leaders reach an agreement, something jumps from the shadows. It's Blackhand and his clan, who prepared an ambush and now consider Durotan a traitor. A fierce battle ensues, and Anduin gives Garona a lance so she can fight too. Callan tells Anduin to protect the king while he guides his own troops into a shield formation against Blackhand. When more orcs are about to arrive, Medivh finishes his spell to create a magic barrier between orcs and humans. Rin calls his men to retreat, but Anduin doesn't leave yet because he notices Callan and his group were left on the other side of the barrier. Anduin tries to ask Medivh to take it down, but the mage doesn't listen. Reaching into the barrier to touch Callan's shoulder damages Anduin's armor, so he has to look for a shield to try to push the magic with it. Callan rushes to meet Blackhand in battle, but he isn't strong enough and after the magic pushes him back, Anduin has to watch his son be killed. Garona and Khadgar find Medivh unconscious after using so much magic, and Rin offers one of his birds to travel faster. Medivh's taken back to his tower and dipped into the magic pool, where Khadgar is shocked to see there's Fel in Medivh's eyes. Khadgar decides to leave and seek the help of the Mage Council. Moments later, Medivh wakes up to find Garona watching over him, and she tells him how the battle ended. She's worried that Anduin will hate her for the death of his son and that she won't be accepted as a human when she already is no orc either. To make her feel better, Medivh explains that when he traveled in his young days, he met a woman that accepted him as he was. He had to leave her to become a guardian, but he learned that love is something worth traveling for. Then he gifts Garona a portal for her to go back to Anduin. She finds him getting drunk while mourning his son, and Anduin confesses that Callan's mother died in childbirth, so he feels bad for blaming the kid for it when he was younger. Garona comforts him with a kiss. At the orc camp, Blackhand comes looking for Durotan to capture him as a traitor. Durotan accepts to go willingly only if Blackhand promises not to bother the rest of his clan. Meanwhile Orgrim watches how the orcs work hard to build the gate, and he's starting to see what Durotan's. Gul'dan wants to grant Orgrim the Fel too, and Orgrim asks him to give him the magic in front of his own clan to show them the Fel is good, obviously lying to carry on with the plan. Afterward Orgrim returns to the Frostwolf and is devastated to discover Blackhand didn't keep his word. Now he is killing them all and burning down their tents. Orgrim rushes to warn Draka to give her the chance to escape, so she runs through the forest until she reaches the river. Then she puts her son in a basket and sends him down the river. At that moment, a green orc shows up, and Draka fights him to stop him from finding the baby. The green orc dies, but so does Draka at the same time. In the meantime, Khadgar has a meeting with Antonidas, the leader of the mages, to tell him the Guardian is corrupted and show the page of his book. Antonidas shows him the dark portal and explains that Elodie was an entity from a time before mages existed, and their function was similar to the Guardian, to protect the kingdom. To everyone's shock, the dark portal suddenly opens, which never happened before. Khadgar enters the portal and meets Elodie, realizing is the same shadow that guided him in the library. Elodie tells Khadgar that the Guardian has betrayed them and that he's consumed by the Fel, meaning he has to be stopped. Khadgar doesn't think he has the power to defeat the Guardian, but Elodie points out that Guardian is just a title. The real guardians of the world are people themselves. Nobody can fight alone, so Khadgar needs to trust his friends because from light comes darkness and from darkness light. In the tower, Morose finds Medivh unconscious again and takes him to the magic pool to recover. As soon as Medivh touches the water, it becomes contaminated with Fel, and Medivh admits he was the one that allowed the orcs to enter their world. He isn't sure how it happened. The Fel took control of him without noticing while he was isolated. Then Medivh absorbs Moreau's life force, killing him. At the castle, Rin is making defense plans, but Anduin disagrees. He thinks they should go all offense and destroy the gates. At that moment Medivh shows up and lies, saying he met with Durotan and that the rebellion against Gul'dan is gaining strength. Anduin doesn't trust Medivh and calls him out for disappearing for 6 years before pointing out he's been unstable. Medivh brings up Callan's death to accuse Anduin of feeling lost because of his grief, which causes Anduin to try to attack him. The guards immediately stop him and Rin sends him to jail until he calms down. In the dungeons, Anduin is visited by Garona, who confirms the king will be marching against the orcs and she's joining him. Anduin tells her not to trust Medivh and Garona promises to protect Rin before she gifts Anduin her mother's tusk. After the king leaves with his army, Khadgar shows up in the dungeons, transforming the guard into a ship to avoid a confrontation. He frees Anduin but instead of letting him join the main battle, he asks him to come with him to go after Medivh. At the orc camp, Orgrim goes to free Durotan, apologizing for not trusting his judgment sooner. Determined to show Gul'dan's real colors, he goes to challenge him in a Mak'gora, a duel to the death for the leadership of the orcs. As the two of them fight, Anduin and Khadgar show up at the tower, but Medivh easily pushes them away with magic and begins reciting the incantation to open the orc gate. Gul'dan senses this and wants Blackhand to take over the duel, but Blackhand refuses because that goes against tradition. Desperate to finish things quickly, Gul'dan uses his magic to absorb Durotan's life force and kill him. All the orcs point out this is cheating, and Orgrim convinces them to rebel. However, Gul'dan easily kills a few warriors with his magic, making everyone else too scared to try. Then Gul'dan gives a huge amount of Fel to Blackhand to mutate him, and sends the horde to battle. When the human army arrives, they find Durotan's body on a sign as a warning. This means they won't have the Frostwolves' help, so Rin tells his men to prioritize saving the human prisoners. As the battlefield becomes bloodshed, Gul'dan begins using people as fuel to bring more orcs from the other world. At the tower, Khadgar tries to attack Medivh with magic and the Guardian activates his golem for defense. Anduin plays bait to keep the golem distracted and climbs his back to grab its head with some wire, so when Medivh tries to attack him with magic, Anduin uses the golem as a shield and the head breaks. Now the golem is stuck because it can't see, thus Khadgar tells Anduin to distract Medivh while he prepares a spell. Medivh pushes Anduin away, but he doesn't give up and tries to talk to the old friend he knows is somewhere under all the dark magic. The Fel doesn't want Medivh to give in and pushes him into the pool to mutate him further, but at that moment, Khadgar finishes his portal and teleports the golem on top of Medivh to stop him. On the battlefield, the orcs lament the loss of their gate. Khadgar himself falls into the pool too and the Fel attempts to corrupt him, but he uses the spell Elodie taught him to expel all the Fel from the tower. A griffin shows up to take Anduin away, while Medivh he uses his last bit of magic to change the gate into a portal to the city as he cries. This allows Rin's army to free the prisoners and take them home, so they gather around the gate to protect it. The orcs run behind the gate to attack from a different angle, and when Medivh finally dies with an apology on his lips, the gate shuts down and the orcs attack the humans from behind. Blackhand begins opening the way to reach the king, because killing the leader is a great honor among the orcs. Garona explains this to Rin so he asks her to kill him, that way they can end this battle and she can try to change the future of the orcs from the inside. Garona kills Rin with her dagger, and the orcs immediately begin celebrating her victory. Gul'dan even officially accepts her into the horde as an actual orc. At that moment, Anduin shows up to take his king's body, discovering Garona's dagger and thinking she betrayed them. Anduin tries to leave on the griffin with the body, but at that moment he gets knocked out by an orc. When he wakes up, he finds himself in the center of a Mak'gora, and Blackhand gives him Rin's sword to fight. Anduin's thirst for revenge for his son allows him to hit Blackhand with precise strikes, killing him quickly. Gul'dan tries to order the orcs to go after him, but the orcs respect the tradition and now they respect Anduin too. Ganora tells Gul'dan that if he kills Anduin, he'll lose his leadership. As Anduin leaves with Rin's body, Orgrim rescues Durotan's body too and takes a fang to give to his son one day. When all the humans return to the city, Anduin shows Khagdar the dagger and tells him Garona is a traitor. Later, a funeral is organized for the king, and his sacrifice finally inspires dwarves and elves to team up with the humans to fight the orcs. Their group is known as the Alliance and it will be led by Anduin. Meanwhile, Durotan's baby is found by the river by some random humans.